Hello and welcome back everyone. This week's look back goes back many years. All the way back to 1983 and all the way back to one of my earliest memories of Commodore 64 gaming. Aztec Challenge was a game that was incredibly tough for its time, but it's by no means a pushover now. And it took me about an hour's worth of playing just to cover off all of the different levels. The game features different challenges for the player, with some taking place in a horizontal platform style and others from an overhead viewpoint. The first level, however, uses a rudimentary third-person view and looked quite spectacular for the time, but it is also very rough and ready. The player must guide their character through 7 different levels. In every level, new deadly perils lurk for the hero. The first level, entitled The Gauntlet, sees the player running towards a temple in the distance. On the left and right are Aztecs who throw spears at the player, and you must duck under the spear or jump over it, depending on the height the spear is coming at. If the player fails to avoid a spear, they are placed back at the start of the level. In the second level, The Stairs, the player is required to dodge left and right to avoid stone blocks thrown down at them as they ascend the stairs of the temple. The other levels are all pretty much the same. Jump, gaps or objects, except for the swimming level, which is probably the worst looking level of the lot. The visuals were hailed as some of the best around in 1983 for the humble Commodore 64, and compared to other games at the time, it did stand out, but while these chunky visuals look very bad today, they were pretty much commonplace at the time. The limited colour palette of the Commodore 64 did not seem to preclude from producing some bright looking sprites and backgrounds, but as the game progresses, each phase gets slightly darker. The sound is typical of the era. The sound effects are just there because, well, they were better than silence. But if you ask me, they are weak, and maybe no sound effects would have been a better option. The music, however, is great. The slowly but gradually unfolding tune becomes increasingly tense and complex as the player progresses through the long, monotonic and increasingly difficult levels. And don't worry about not taking the tune in, as it's repeated on every single level. So if you don't like it, I suggest playing with the volume turned down. The playability is pretty decent. It won't attract any modern gamers, I imagine, but people from my generation of gamers will probably remember Aztec Challenge quite well, with either fond memories or bad memories. The game is rather simplistic, but even when you know what to do, you can still get caught out. For example, the first level, you either duck the high spears or jump the low ones. Nothing too complicated, right? But as the tense music starts to build up, and the view of the temple in the distance changes, and you see the staircase at the bottom, the nerves start to set in, and before you know it, you have jumped instead of ducking, and you get speared, and then it's right back to the very start of the level. You do seem to have an infinite amount of continues, however, and so progression is determined really by your persistence and luck, as opposed to skill and determination. Back when I had this on a Commodore 64, I had a copy of this game, and when loading it up, the game would not start. Instead, you were presented with the blue screen and the Commodore 64 prompt. But I still remember the line I had to type in order for the game to start. SYS 4096. And then the game would start. And I do mean start. I played this game loads of times on a Commodore and I did enjoy it. But when I downloaded it for this video, I was shocked. I never knew there was a title screen, or that each level was named and the objective laid out in front of you. It must have been something to do with the pirate copy, I suppose, that these screens were left out. And that's amazing. The Commodore 64 is still producing surprises for me all these years later. Something else I obviously didn't notice, as I didn't own the original, was the artwork on the cassette box. I had a look online at these, and it seems that some other countries were maybe less restrictive when it came to revealing the female form. But even the UK artwork seems a little suggestive, especially when computer games were marketed at kids. But regardless of how I managed to play Aztec Challenge, I have to say, it's a game that brings back a lot of memories from my childhood, and I did enjoy playing it back for this video, even if the challenge was frustrating and far tougher than I remember. And that was my look back at Aztec Challenge on the Commodore 64. If you have the ability to play this classic, I strongly recommend you do so. And if you like this video and want to subscribe as a way of showing support, then please feel free to click the little icons below, should you feel the need to. And a massive thank you as always to everyone who has subscribed and commented already. Your feedback and support really does help with the growth of the channel, and I do appreciate all of you, so thank you from me. And that's all from me, folks. Thanks for watching.